we are on the third day of Portal 9 convention, and now we gathered here to talk about the impact of LARPing on the players. And since we had a lot of talks and trainings a few days ago, we decided that we do not like the word education connected with our games because it sounds boring and school-like. So instead of education impact, we will talk about learning impact, which is more general and flexible and maybe better suited to games and playing. Because even if we do not any of the school subjects, we can actually, as players, learn a lot while we learn. And there are many things you can learn during the LARP. You can learn flexibility, crisis management, talking, convincing other people, argumentation, negotiation, but also things like empathy and feelings, and also expressing your feelings and emotions, and everything that is connected into playing a character that you wouldn't play in a normal life, but now you can play it because it's a safe environment of a game. But instead of talking what actually we can learn from a LARP, because I think all of you would agree that it happens, at least from time to time. But maybe let's make a short introduction. Any of you from the audience, please tell one thing that you have ever learned while playing a LARP. Let's go on from here.
I've learned how to manage the situation of crisis connected with people who don't agree on the point of the matter, like how to deal with people who have different opinions and how to get out of this situation that like everybody is not killing each other.
Thank you. Let's go on.
All right. I've learned how to find situations and play that I would enjoy and not get stuck with the things that are frustrating, for example.
Good, thank you.
I have learned how to make convincing arguments and also how to start a fire, how to bake on that fire. Some practical skills that should not be overlooked.
So it's both argumentation and practical skills.
Exactly. How to
Okay.
survive in a forest.
Was it the same LARP?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
For me, I would say I learned a lot about teamwork and how important it is to have a group that you can trust and that you work together for the objectives of the group. And this was powerful for me because usually I tend to do things alone on my own, and it was very good to be able to rely and work together.
Okay.
I have learned that the personality of a person is a combination of many stuff, and because on a LARP, because of the setting, in a very short amount of time you have to make a lot of decisions, that one decision or one action of a person does not characterize the whole individual.
Great.
I have learned that sometimes humans act in ways you do not anticipate, or in ways you cannot explain why, ways that you can't explain why they act like that. And in general, I have learned that like when my character did stuff which I couldn't explain, like why he did it, I realized that the human brain and the human thought system is so simple and human feelings are so complicated. So sometimes we can't really explain our actions.
Thank you.
For me it was I find out how to deal with a situation that I used to feel uncomfortable or like hate speech when someone speaks to you like like really bad for no reason or just because he has his own ideas, how to deal with that through LARP.
Great.
Well,
Oh, something more. Go on.
yes, for me personally, I tend to be more reflexive and think a lot before acting and then forget to take action in my life. And with LARP, where you really have to take decisions, take action to this, I think it's really pushing me whenever I play to get out of my comfort and actually take action without overthinking it.
Thank you. You see, it was easy. You didn't actually think along, you just, came along with a lot of answers. We started upside down, that's how I wanted it, so the audience talked first. But now let's try to add something to the list.
Thank you.
By the way, introduce yourself, as we are actually being recorded here.
I didn't know, I didn't sign up for this. Thank you. I was being jealous actually. I felt like I wanted to go to the audience and answer. I've learned a lot of, I should introduce myself. My name is Leonidas Perelis, and I am a teacher and a founding member of Dragon's. And I'm here with both capacities. I have participated in a couple of LARPs, and I have found that I have learned how to act on my feet fast. Generally, I'm a very long thinker. I like to analyze everything for hours, and I have also learned a lot of practical skills, like it has already been mentioned. But one of the most important things that I have learned is how to deal with stupid assholes, which is something very interesting. Stupid assholes is not a category of people. Everybody can be a stupid asshole to somebody else. So in LARP, you learn how to deal with different people in stressful scenarios. People that you generally would do anything to avoid in your life, but there you just can't. You have to deal with it. So you get yourself willingly into this situation, and then you have to stay. You have to survive it. And even if it's not literal survival, it's social and mental and emotional survival. And you didn't choose the other people. You didn't choose their characters. Maybe they didn't even choose their characters. And you have to deal with this diversity that we, in our lives, our real lives, we tend to call it the people I don't deal with. We all have people we don't want to deal with. And we find thousands of ways to excuse ourselves from dealing with them. But this is not the way to learn. And there will come a time when one of these people will be a gatekeeper for an important gate in your life. And it's a great skill to acquire, not to be afraid of dealing with the stupid assholes.
Wonderful, thank you. Electra, one was something about you. Introduce yourself and answer the question.
Hi, I'm Electra. I'm a psychotherapist, a trainer, and the founder of the LARPifiers. So, okay, one thing I have learned from LARP is that there are many layers to my personality than I usually use in my real life. So I can be many things if I put my energy to it and if I believe I can do it. And that includes good things, but it also includes being a shitty asshole.
How would you put it in one word?
I don't know, multiple personalities.
I think it's exploring
You
the
have
beast within
introspection.
you.
Exploring possibilities of being.
multiple personalities.
Okay,
I will
like
put
that
it.
one.
Okay. To round it up, my name is Zbyszek Janczukowicz. I'm from Nausicaa Foundation and I'm a LARP designer, organizer, but not only LARP. I also deal with European projects. So I do not only play games, I only do the bureaucracy behind it, the strategic planning.
You mean you also do that?
I also do that.
Okay.
And I also focused on results that we have. And since we have a kind of soft skills and subjective topics around here, these results are pretty tricky to talk about this. And here we are entering the actual topic of this discussion. Because writing this set of skills, what have you learned during a LARP, was very easy for you. So we do not need to question it. But for now, please do not add anything more. But let's focus on the question, how can we measure these things? Because you just told the story, I learned this or that. And that's cool, that's very good. But if we want to actually structure this learning by LARPing or make it more popular or invite people who are not LARPers to play a game and learn something, you would like to predict what they can learn. And if we want to, offer it to players, we should have a more structured, even scientific way of measuring and expecting the results. So my question now, later to the audience and now to the speakers, is what ways of methods of measuring the learning impact do you have? Have you ever tried or you know of?
Well, I've never tried measuring impact on a LARP, despite the fact that I helped organize one, because it was my first attempt in helping organization, and measuring was not high on my list of priorities. But I've worked as a teacher for more than 6-7 years, and we as teachers, it's maybe our most boring duty. We have to measure results. Our main duty is to produce them, but we also have to measure them. So I have some long experience on how to measure results, and it's really difficult. But there are ways, and I don't think it's possible to find the best way beforehand. If I really want to measure results, I would try multiple approaches, because I just need one of them to work correctly, and many of them are going to definitely fail. So we have to catalog a few. The most direct way to measure results, in my opinion, is to observe. You have observers, and they need to observe the people before and afterwards. Just look at them, and maybe talk to them about whatever, but not ask direct questions. The observation is very important, and they can give an opinion, a baseline to start with. Having a baseline is, for me, important, because especially at school, everybody disagrees on the baseline. Like, what is it? In a scale from 0 to 20, is it 10? Is it 14? Is it 15? What's the baseline? It's like IQ stupid stuff. Is it 100? What is it? So you need to have a baseline. Like, okay, I'm gonna have create this LARP, have these 100 people come in. I hope to teach them empathy. What's the baseline of empathy? What do I expect from them before the LARP? So you have to measure that before, maybe use some studies, use statistics, and create a baseline, and then observe them before and after. Another idea after observation is questionnaires, where you directly ask them stuff. But I have to say I have a bad experience with that. I'm one of these people who try to trick questionnaires all the time. And instead of answering honestly, I answer the way I think will make the system produce the result I want. Questionnaires can be tricky, and people don't, in my experience, people don't feel comfortable really with them. So alone, I don't trust them at all. But they are a side tool. And what I trust more is a third method that's people, the participants grading each other.
Peer
Like
assessment.
peer assessment. And just like the observators are from the organization's point of view, this assessment is going to be within the group. This I trust much more for some reason. And it can produce very healthy results. And then self-assessment together with that. First you assess your peers, and then you can maybe better assess yourself. The tricky part is, okay, let's say I create this process and these people assess themselves, assess each other and then themselves. How do I get this information raw, as raw as possible, without too much overthinking of it? And the main answer in the literature, as far as I know, is questionnaires, which, as I said before, problematic. But maybe, especially if we talk about qualitative research, maybe we can get an essay or something more open than a direct question, which is a lot of more work, but it's better. And then, finally, it is my opinion that, especially with LARP, assessment should take some time, a break. As with general learning, the child, we educators know, or should know, that when we teach math or any subject, this is when the child or the person in the classroom hears about it. It's not the moment he learns about it. That moment comes later. It comes after sleep, it comes after a few days, it comes after interacting with the world, it comes after internal thought processes that even cognitive science has not completely analyzed. So I want to say that assessment should be multi-layered. We shouldn't just assess before and after and by. We need to assess later again and compare results, and then have a second LARP, and then again a few layers of assessment. And then maybe we can be closer to the truth. That's my view.
Thank you. That's actually a lot of answers, but we still have some place. Electra, would you like to focus on some of them?
I would like to add also.
Ah, great.
Yeah. Interviews, focus groups, experiments. Okay, until Słowik writes everything down, I want to say that when we are talking about measuring results, we're essentially talking about research. Okay, and I know that research is a word that many people, by hearing it, have headaches, heart attacks, and generally it's, I don't know, a subject that not many people have learned to love. Then especially qualitative research, as also Leonidas said, tends to be more easily lovable, but quantitative, most people have learned to hate it. And my argumentation is that people have learned to hate it because of the school system. Okay, actually, qualitative research and statistics is a fantastic tool that does not need to be, you know, putting fear into men's hearts. Okay, it's not a monster, it will not eat you alive. You don't need to eat it alive either. It can be used, you know, in many ways, but you also need to know how to use it in order for it not to be, to make people feel uncomfortable or not to be too close-minded and all this stuff. So one question for me is, what is the tool that we are using? So is it going to be a questionnaire? Is it going to be an interview or a focus group or an observation study? Or even a participatory study? That's when we focus on the tool. But then when you go to the research design, you also need to answer, do I want to do a field study or do I want to do an experimental study? And do I want the research to be short term or do I want it to be longitudinal study? So there are many dimensions. You know how we have the mixing desk of LARP?
Yes.
There is a mixing desk of research.
Okay.
Let's put it this way. So according, you know, to what exactly you need, you know, push the faders up and down, and you come up with, you know, the method or the tool that best fits your goals, depending on what is it exactly that you want to measure.
Mixing desk of research sounds very complex but fascinating. I would like to see
more
it.
gamistic, right?
But it's gamistic,
Yes.
and I'm as a person who loves spreadsheets, I would actually like to read more about it.
Let's
But-
gamify research.
Do I get you right if you propose a mixing desk of research that every lab should have a different set of tools or methodology of research, and there is no like unified universal research that can be applied like both to combat LARPs, survival LARPs, chamber LARPs, or even like online LARPs, but you should somehow adjust to each game particularly?
Let me put it this way. It depends what is the learning objective of the LARP. Okay, so if for example we focus on practical skills that Fotini mentioned before. Okay, let's say that we design a LARP to teach people about certain practical skills, woodworking. Okay, so the impact has to do, I think, with whether at the end of the LARP these people have more woodworking skills that they had before. Okay, so at the exact end, at the exact moment that the LARP ends, you can already have a measuring of the impact by seeing, okay, this person started without knowing anything about woodwork, and now he can carve something, I don't know, something. So you measure an impact. You see a skill that was not there before. But if you want to measure empathy, that Leonidas talked about before, are you really in the position to measure it at the moment the LARP ends? I would say no. I would say that you need to come back to these people 6 months later to see if you made an impact.
So and this is even arbitrary.
Exactly.
Why 6 or 5 or 7 or when?
Exactly. So depending on what exactly it is that you're trying to measure the impact on or off, it's a different research design that you need to use.
from personal experience, I can say that it took me years to realize the impact role-playing games and LARP had on me. It was a dawning moment that I was like, hey, where did I get all those skills? And then suddenly I knew where D&D. Yes. But when I was playing, Jesus, I had no idea.
Okay,
Did I
so
confuse you?
what you say, no, you only scared me personally, because as I understand this information, there are multiple tools and they have to be carefully adjusted to the game and also used and applied throughout a long time, which is
Maybe.
actually,
Maybe, not necessarily.
for some
For
cases,
some, yeah.
which actually makes, it requires a lot of thinking and planning from the organizers, and also a lot of energy if we actually want to make it serious. Not to, look at the game as a game master and say, oh, they actually learned a lot of empathy because they were healing each other. Yeah? And so it's a more complicated matter and it requires more energy.
I can complicate it a little bit more if you want.
Since we go into that direction, please, there is also one question.
I also want to complicate it a bit more. I have something to add. Yes, I do agree with what Electra said. I had that in mind as well. I would say that in a LARP, the organizers are basically responsible for creating the tools that the players are going to use in the game. So maybe when creating the LARP, you also need to make a list of expectation of how the tools will be used. So the tools can be anything. If you start constructing a LARP saying, we want this LARP to help them with understanding what immigrants go through, for example, for Edinu, then you give them some tools in the game, like what do you expect them to do? Do you expect them to heal the immigrants? So you just basically go into the components of the LARP that you would expect to kind of like be hotspots for using a certain skill that you want to measure, and assess the individual engagement of the players with that hotspot. If it's, for example, a language learning LARP, and you want to help your students use future tenses, so you create a LARP that it revolves around talking about the future, then you have some observers in there that are kind of real-time assessing the students in their speaking skills, for example. So it really, you really need to think about the assessment when creating the themes and tools for the LARP.
Thank you.
I think I have actually a question maybe for that.
Yes?
So in all of these, I see that there are multiple ideas about how to measure or to try to understand what is happening and so on. But my question is about, because that comes mostly from my work, so it's the question of the goals. How do we know that as creators or designers, whatever, you set a goal, try to achieve it, but maybe in the end the goal was wrong. So in my line of work in software, it's very important to understand if the goal was actually realistic. So my question is, which are the mechanics of the feedback loops that actually show us that the goal was correct?
Okay, this takes us away from what we were talking about, but it's very interesting. It's another topic. I believe that the goals should be set at the beginning by the organizers and the designers, and then this toolbox of assessment that we created should be modified accordingly, like Lectra very well put, and then the thing would run. And after the assessment, whether it's immediate or after 6 months or whatever, there should be an assessment of the whole thing, because the assessment of what people learn and the assessment of the LARP, of the process, are two different things. And after assessing the process, you realize whether you went towards your goals, how well did you achieve them or not, and whether you actually achieved other stuff that you didn't even imagine, which is very often the case.
And that usually, like the assessment of the tool itself, whether it is a LARP or anything else, that usually happens way before, in the play testing phase. So by the time we are here to measure the impact on the actual players, that means hopefully that the assessment of the tool itself has already happened. Not always, but hopefully.
And sure, it may need to happen again, but this is meta-assessment.
Yeah, we are not speaking about assessing the game or the mechanics of the game, but just the impact on participants now. But from what you said, I already get it that my life will not be easy the following years, because we don't either, it's not enough to think after the LARP, and maybe, you know, call the participants and question them, but we also have to think before the LARP. So it's actually crazy adventure to you know, make a game and count on, you know, understanding better the learning process. But I will still try to do this at least a few times. So thanks for expanding these things.
I would like to add something.
Yes?
That it also, for me, it plays a big role. Why do you want this impact assessment? Okay, you may want it for yourself, okay? To know if your LARP was successful in your learning objectives, which is fine. You may want it for your national agency, if you're running an Erasmus Plus project. You may want it, you know, to come, you know, to a convention and show the results, you know, of your project to other LARP designers, or you may want it for academic purposes. Okay. This may also play a role in what you choose to do, because, okay, let's say, I will take Fotinis' example about the LARP that has the learning objective to educate people about immigration. Okay, so we run the LARP, and then we use everything, okay, questionnaires, interviews, focus groups, observation sheets, everything. The thing is that we don't know exactly how sensitized and educated to the matter the participants were already before coming to the LARP. So you will see an impact, but you will not be able to tell with 100% certainty that this impact is because of my LARP. Okay, maybe it's because of your LARP, maybe it's because during the breaks they talked with Monica, and Monica actually educated them, and not the LARP itself. Or maybe they got a bit interested in the matter and went and did other classes. Okay, so you cannot, not with every methodology of research can you actually prove causality. That thing A caused outcome B. If you need to prove causality for any of the before mentioned reasons, then you need a much different research design that doesn't only have to do with research after the LARP, but you also need to do research before the LARP.
Now it is a LARP within a LARP already, because I would have
And research within a research.
I have to establish what kind of role am I playing, as am I a project coordinator, or am I an academic researcher? Or I would add a third role, because maybe I'm just an educator who doesn't need it to report the project, because I can do this well anyway, and I'm not writing an academic book, but I have another purpose. I actually want the players to realize that they have learned it, because it's not only the playing, but the reflection after the playing, which actually you know, saves this fresh data, and actually thinking about what I have learned makes it deeper. and makes it stay. So actually at the third role, and this is the most important for me, to speak with the players about it, to make it more like actually, you know, make the impact be there. But let's play this LARP within a LARP. Okay.
Well, I have to take a second to appreciate
Yes.
his work. I mean, this is beautiful. And it's-
We have not introduced. So Słowik is helping us. He's from the Polish LARP community. Thank you for a smart diagram here.
this is
It's
wonderful.
a labyrinth. You're about to enter.
It is a labyrinth.
If I
Okay, so
understand
I will
correctly.
go to the labyrinth then, and there were 2 questions. So please go on.
It was, okay, I think, more of an observation, like reflecting on my teaching practice, and also with assessing how students develop their social, emotional skills. This has been very hard to assess because it's very immaterial. But we would always do prior evaluation, initial evaluation, and evaluate after, because as you said, you don't know if the people who come to Edinu, if they are already working with refugees and very empathetic towards their cause, or if they are nationalistic, migrant despisers, let's say. And I think, yeah, that somehow there should be some prior evaluation. Also, in my teaching association, I did the Teach for Romania program. We would have these tools where we would try to assess soft skills. And we had these descriptors, like how does empathy look on level 1 and how does empathy look on level 5. And then we would do an initial observation after spending, let's say, a month with the students, and then maybe do it again at the end of the semester or at the end of the school year and see if empathy 1 transforms into empathy 2 or 3 or something. We would try to do this through observation mostly.
It is the baseline thing. You have to have a baseline before. This evaluation before is very important, especially, I mean, actually always, but especially if you want to prove causality. This is almost impossible, I believe. You have to, if you want to prove causality, you have to exclude the rest of the world from your experiment. You have to play survivor on an island. I don't know, but really, how to prove causality? In my profession as an educator, we have given up on this, and I'm glad, because it's really difficult. As a parent, I'm having huge talks with my wife about whether this thing that we send our child to do is actually improving him on any level, because we see some improvement, but the child is living a life at the same time. And an argument can be said that, oh, this helped him talk better. And an argument could be like, oh, he would talk better anyway, he's like a year older.
Or these two helped him to talk better.
Yes, so you can never know. Suddenly you see your student or your child or the adult or the person be more empathetic. What caused this? Nobody knows. So if you really want to prove causality, you have to evacuate the person, not the person, the whole world.
It's not
Somehow.
that bad. It's not that
Are we recording this?
bad. Yes. Okay.
I don't know.
No, I agree with you, but things are not necessarily that bad because you have some tools in order to take away some intervening variables.
Okay,
Oh.
but you come from the humanistic studies. I am a very zero-on-one kind of person.
No,
So
okay.
causality for me is something very strict.
Deterministic.
Yeah.
If I use these tools in order to get the sample correctly and to distributed into control groups and non-control
Okay,
groups.
then statistics can be your friend forever, and you can get something out of it. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. In the because it's worth it. Otherwise, if we distill it down to logical causality, we're dead.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yes. So about that, wouldn't it be simply easier to just ask the participants what they learned from the LARP? So
That's
just
what you do in the
a
interviews.
simple, yeah, exactly. But in the Montessori schooling system that I kind of had the chance to engage with, there was this semester assessment that we had that wasn't tests, but it was basically a folder where the students would sum up in their own words what they learned throughout the year in a class, for example. In math, what was your favorite bit about math? Write a bit about it. So what you use this. So maybe something like this could be used in a LARP. Like, it's not a very concrete form of assessment because you don't get to control what the participants write about, but you definitely get to see what they learned from the experience itself. So you basically have them sum up the LARP or some points about it.
We use that in
Yeah.
driving.
Exactly. So
we
an
did
open
focus groups, open discussion, and we used counting codes to see how many times and how often would come up the things that we wanted to measure, etc.
Mhm.
The thing is that I would argue, and based also on my personal experience as a player, that having the LARP and doing the focus group just a couple of days later will give you nothing. Okay, like with some LARPs that I participated, it took me even a year to reflect and be able to tell you what it is that I learned through that LARP. And maybe if you ask me in another year, maybe I will tell you even more things or different things. So the self-assessment is great, but again, it takes time. It takes time, it takes a lot of reflection, meta-reflection, and are you participating in the reflection or do you leave it just to the player? Again,
It
it's,
depends. It's a tool, but
Actually, at my master, I learned about a new methodology that is not very known in England, but more in France. It's about narrative method. That means that you give a paper to someone after the LARP or before the LARP, and they can write whatever they want about their life, what they learned, whatever they want, no questions. So you can grade what happened before his life, before the LARP in his life, what was his expectations, or if he didn't have any expectations, what happened during and after. So that was a method that could actually help you because you look scared.
Thank you very much. It's written down and we will definitely give it a try.
I have two questions if that's okay. The first one is about, we talked about measuring results when you have to present them in an academic research or for an organization. And I think the gaming field and when trying to measure the impact a game had on people, it's extra harder to convince people that your results are valid when it comes to using games as a, because it's not as established as, like, people don't take it as granted that games are good for you and they improve you, so let's talk, we have that as a fact and we talk after that. And I think it makes it harder while trying to convince people that what you do matters and has results. You kind of need to, or tend to use the measuring tools that they would use for all other academic research, like Excels and all that numerical and stuff. And I would like to ask you if those tools you think are limiting you, in what way, and if you had the freedom like to present your results in any way that you wanted without caring about if people will take it seriously, what would you like to be able to express more through those results, if that makes any sense?
I'm kind of lost.
Any of you?
I have a reply, but
No,
do you
no.
want clarification?
I would love a rephrasement.
Yeah, I know. When you do academic research and want to present results for like a panel or an organization, I think that you tend to use the presentation and measuring tools that most academic fields use, like Excels and statistics.
Yes, and pies and charts.
And certain quality methods
So,
too.
let's check if I understand you.
Yeah.
There are some like how the research should look serious and
Yeah,
similar to other research. It cannot be something, you know, totally out of the blue, like, you
Yeah,
know,
you have
some
to do
unicorns written, draw on a meadow, and then we interpret, you know,
Yeah.
the mood of the person who draw it.
Yeah.
So we need something that looks serious.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the question was, if we didn't care about how it looks,
Yeah,
if the
if you
people
find it
believe it
limiting,
or no,
limiting
how we would do this research if we are not limited and we can do anything creative.
Excellent.
That's excellent question. So please go on.
I will start because yours is going to be better. I believe that it's really limiting. I believe that we always have in the back of our minds this factor, like, okay, I'm going to do this research, I'm going to learn this stuff, but it has to look proper afterwards, and it has to be useful afterwards, and it shouldn't matter in our as a rule for what tools we use or how we do it, but it does. It's annoying. It shouldn't. So it's my opinion that the results are better as raw as possible. For example, if I have like 100 people participating in my experiment, and then I have 100 essays from them, like 2 pages each, and then after 6 months again, and after 6 months again, and after 6 months again, and I have tons of data, and they are the real data. Now if I take this and I process it and I create pie charts and statistic stuff, and then maybe people are going to be more willing to take a look at what I've done, because nobody wants to read tons of raw data, but the truth is in the raw data. So the best way to understand what has been done is to read the 1,000 pages. But it's annoying, nobody does it.
I agree, and I don't agree at the same time.
Okay. Excellent.
I agree because yes, the truth is in the raw data, but nobody reads it.
Yes.
So I totally agree. And also another issue that I would raise is that research is a very elitist knowledge, unfortunately. It's a knowledge that is, reserved for the few, and it's something that can even, in a classist way, segregate the ones who can understand research and the ones who just see a Gantt chart or a pie chart and they get impressed without having no fucking idea what the chart says. And this is the problem for me. Okay, because if you ask me personally, is it limiting? No, it's not, because I know research. Okay, so since I know research, it doesn't limit me at all. On the contrary, it's an adventurous quest. I need to take something playful and present it in a serious way and prove to some, academic, snobs that gaming is actually, an important thing. Yes, I will take on the quest. Okay, but because I have the skills to do this quest.
But I think what you're saying is wonderful. I want to add on it. What if you didn't have academics and researchers to
That's-
present to it?
that's
What
the-
if you had to present it to a salesperson, to a businessman,
That's the question that
who
I
doesn't
asked,
understand
that I
research?
asked Zbyszek before. Like, who do you need the impact for?
Yes.
Because if I want to talk to my friend Leonidas, that you know, Leonidas, we did a LARP the other day and it was great, I will just mention to him some instances from the game, and that will be enough for us.
Yes.
Okay, maybe if I talk with Zbyszek, maybe Zbyszek will require a little bit more because he will definitely want to make a project out of it. So he has to convince the national agency. Okay, so it depends. It depends.
So I believe that who you are talking to really makes
Yeah.
this wonderful or shitty, it makes all the difference.
Yeah.
So if you, this is research, and if you have to talk with scientists, it's not a problem. But it's often the point that you need to talk with people who want the numbers,
Yeah.
who ask you, like, give me some results, like a page, give me one page. And creating this one page from the tons of the data is a very big problem, especially in our age of misinformation, of tons of information, of immense data input that we get in our lives. I mean, 20 years ago, I can say from reading, I wasn't a sane person. I was like a monkey back then. But 20 years ago or 30 years ago, researchers didn't have this problem because people were, the generations back then, they were accepting results in a more elaborate manner. Now they want to hear 3, 4 numbers maximum.
The elevator pitch.
Yes, yes. You have to explain everything in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And this is a real difficult part of this.
Sorry, Zbyszek.
No, it's began to be legendary. There is a quest, and we are just embarking on a quest. I love this attitude. Thank you for using this word. I will conclude with it because the time comes, and we have only 1 more minute to convince the national agency to this quest. So I would like to move you a little bit. Please imagine that instead of our speakers, we have 2 agents now, or symbols. One is the agent of despair or critical thinking, and the second, the agent of hope that says, yes, we can do this quest. And please, I would like you to stand on this side of the table, you on this side of the table, and our guests, please show yourself to the camera as well by choosing either the agent of despair or the agent of hope. And please stand up and make your choice.
Choose them for what purpose?
We are about to start a journey or a quest. We will try to do research to measure the results of LARPing on players. Do we have a chance to succeed or no? It's a hopeless journey. Hopeless success. I know it's not black or white, that's what we've been talking about, but now you have a black and white choice. And please be honest about it.
You should choose 2.
Oh no.
No, I am.
They put them.
No.
I am very crossed, and I will stand here.
You don't get to make us make a decision and then stand in the middle.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Can I
Sorry
scoot-
for
Can I
just
scoot
role
over?
play.
Can I
Yes.
scoot over?
Come.
Man, I really like the way you ended this, and I enjoy my role in making this distinction because I am a hopeful person too, deep down. And I just,
I'm also a very desperate person.
yes, yes, so it's a wonderful way, but this is the only way to defeat despair, you know. Go to the hope side and then despair will be alone.
Let's
Yeah,
So-
wonderful.
let's go there together.